Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about my September wrap up. Now this time I'm going to leave out the TV series stuff, movie stuff, and any game stuff because I did a lot of reading and I'm just not really in the headspace to talk about everything that I've done. So I'm just going to focus on the books. With that said, let's go ahead and let's get started. Up first, we have Rosemary and Rue by Shannon McGuire. This is the first book in the October Days series. This series was brought to my attention by Daw Books because they sent me the arcs for books 17 and 18, and I've never read the series. And it's now fast becoming one of my favorites. I am enjoying it. I very much enjoyed Rosemary and Rue. I struggled a little bit in the beginning, but then towards the middle, and then when it had its explosive end that left me a crying mess, I realized that I really liked it. It was just getting past Toby's initial introduction to herself and like all of her whining and crying. I do have an extended review of it on the channel. I'll have it linked below so you guys can check it out, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. After that, I have A Local Habitation by Shannon McGuire. It is book 2 in the October Days series. I have not done a full review on this one yet, but I did enjoy it. It was more of a 3-star than it was a 4-star. I did cry towards the end a little bit, more so because of just McGuire has this habit that I've seen twice now in having children be involved in horrible things that breaks my heart, and then having these children say things that break my heart. And that's what happened in A Local Habitation. But there was a lot of interesting elements within it. We meet some more brand new characters. Some old characters from the first book come back in. Quentin was involved in like the entire book. He's a teenager from the first one, and I was like, oh my god, I love Quentin. He's adorable. And him and Toby's interactions with each other are just, they're so funny. Like, she tries so hard to be the boss of him, but she's also so like motherly to him. And I love it. I love to see it. I really love seeing like this motherly nature that Toby has with a lot of the teenagers and young kids that come into it. I also really liked the mix of fae magic with technology. There was this really cool element that McGuire used for this story that I thought was really interesting, and I was like, oh, well, that's something I don't think anyone would have normally thought of, so that's kind of cool. There was a couple of things about it where it felt kind of repetitive, and it felt like Toby was making really just stupid choices, so that got a little bit annoying. And then there was 2 characters where it was very obvious how these characters' fae magic worked. For one part of how their magic worked in 2 ways, but there was one part of it that was like so obvious, but the mystery behind them for me was like, what kind of like fae creature are they? So yeah, there was just a couple bad things here, a couple good things there, but it still wasn't a terrible enough story to like turn me away. I really like the characters that are involved in the series, so I am continuing on, obviously. After that, I read Driftwood by Marie Brennan. This is a short story book. I found it randomly at the library when I was picking up my holds and browsing, and I'd never heard of it. I didn't even recognize the author. Apparently the author has a very well-known series. Something about dragons. I don't know. But anyways, Driftwood was very interesting. It's a short story. You follow the last like remaining tales of a character named Last, and he's gone missing in this world of Driftwood. All of these places are breaking down and falling apart, and they're like being sucked into like this like black hole vortex thing, and the Driftwood is like what's left behind and where the stragglers go to live. But the stories follow a man named Last, a man who has been there forever. Nobody knows why he hasn't died off, why he can live through everything, why he's immortal. Some think he's a god, some think he's pretending and making stories up and all this other things. And so you end up seeing all these stories from these different characters' point of views about Last. And while the stories all like range in what the subject matter of the story is, one of the things I liked about it was the fact that Last always came off portrayed the exact same way. Someone who was very, he was sad. He was sad, he was melancholy, but he always tried to do the right thing by whoever he was helping and wanted them to have like their moment. And I really liked that. It actually made Last a very likable character for you not actually really seeing Last throughout the entire book. And I really liked the way that they managed to pull that off. My biggest problem with the book overall, though, was the writing style. Oh, I did not like the writing style. If I had not been interested in the premises of the story, and if it had not been like a 200-page book, I would have DNF'd it, because the writing style was horrendous to try and get through. Just something about the sentence structure, the placement of certain words in her sentences. I was constantly stumbling and tripping over, and just it drove me insane sometimes. And so what should have taken me like 4 hours to read, because it's like a 200-page book, it took me I think like 2 or 3 days, because I had to take breaks because I could not grasp the writing style. And I don't know if I'm going to pick up anything else by this particular author. I don't know if it was just a writing convention she used specifically for this book. I don't know, but I am kind of on the fence now about possibly picking up anything else by them. If I do, it'll be another library book. But yeah, that was my biggest gripe overall, was the writing style. After that, I have the horror book Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. I actually just released a review video for this, so I will have it linked below, but I can tell you guys this: the comparison books that this book has had used to garner interest has been correct. The Exorcist meets Lord of the Flies. That is, it's not often that I believe those comp titles, but this one is on point. It is great. It is horrific. It is scary. I read it in a day. I read it in a day, and I was like, I have to own this book. So at some point, I will be owning that to keep it on my shelves, because I can see myself rereading that one when the next spooky season comes around, because I very much enjoyed it. Then I listened to the audiobook Veil of Lives by Jerry Westerson. This is a medieval noir mystery series, and I picked it up because I actually had picked up book 11 from the library. I hadn't realized, like, I knew it was like further down in the line, but sometimes with those mystery books you could pick them up wherever. Apparently that's not the case with this one, because I looked into it and they were like, you gotta read the first one. You gotta read them in order. So I was like, okay, let me go get the audiobook for the first one. It was like a 3-star. I was mildly entertained by it. I don't really honestly remember a lot about it, except for the fact that like sometimes the guy you were following, which I don't even remember his name, he was kind of like a jerk. And I was like, I don't really want to follow a mystery series that kind of like follows a jerk. I really don't want to do that. And then I just don't think the mystery itself was all that compelling. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be continuing on with that series. If I do, it'll probably be at like a much later date. I already returned the 11th book to the library just because I wasn't like blown away by book 3, by book 1. Then we have a book that I own, Sons of the Oak by David Farland. This is book 5 in the Rune Lord series. I initially read books 1 through 4 2 years ago, and I wasn't blown away by it. I actually had a lot of issues with the way Farland writes, and I figured I will hold on to this one and I'll read it, because this was going to be following the Sons of Gaborn from the first 4 books. So I was like, maybe it'll be different, maybe it'll be a little bit different, maybe I'll like the characters a bit more. No. One of my big gripes with Farland is his insistent need to repeat information. His 40,000 different endowments of strength. His 40,000 endowments of strength. Oh, she had 1,000 endowments of beauty because of her 1,000 endowments of beauty. I get it. You don't need to tell me so many times. Like, can you stop? And then my other biggest gripe is his female characters and how he treats them. So much of their characterization revolves around either being the most drop-dead gorgeous beauty you have ever seen in your life, or the most raggedy, haggedy, nastiest looking lady who looks like she got hit by a truck. There's no in between. That's just what you get. Just that. And it really got on my nerves. And there's even a whole scene where these things that they're writing on this cover, they're called Gracks. And they're like, oh, Gracks are only strong enough to carry children. But this woman, she's so small and so tiny and so beautiful with all of her endowments of beauty that the Grack can carry her too. Shut the fudge up. Shut up. Like, I was so annoyed because I'm just like, no. And it got on my nerves. Also, the way big characters from the first 4 books were dying in this one, they were boring. It was their deaths were boring, especially the main character. Like, talk about boring. And I was just like, bro, what is this? This is lame. Like, I was not feeling it. And I wasn't feeling it when a particular mother died. Like, I was like, I guess this is sad. But also, I just want to say that there was a male character who wasn't treated very well, and that would be Bornson. Bornson, if written by the right person, he could have been a favorite for me. And for the most part, if I have to walk away from the Rune Lord series liking a character, Bornson's character development up to this point, I definitely enjoyed. But I also feel really bad for this guy, because every time he got brought up in this book, are you guys ready? Bornson, who had gotten so fat. Because he's old. He's getting older. He's putting on weight. Like, it's not a bad thing, bro. Like, Farland just made it sound like it was such a horrible thing because he had to bring it up all the time. Bornson couldn't run up that hill because he's so fat now. Oh, Bornson couldn't fight that well because he's so fat now. And I was just like... And, like, even, the very, last, bit of this story, when everything's supposed to be coming to its end and everything's supposed to be all happy and everyone's like, oh, yay, look what we've done now. Here comes Farland. Bornson walking up the hill was so out of breath because he's so fat now. But don't worry, his wife is still super pretty because she still has some of her endowments of beauty. So, yeah. That is, because of all of those annoyances, I honestly really just don't know, the premises of the story. They were attacked by some dark force, I guess. They were. I guess. I don't really know how the dark force worked, because I was just so annoyed at the repetitive information being thrown in my face that, covered up the plot. The horrible way of how he treated his characters, describing them and everything. And honestly, the only scene that did actually kind of hurt my feelings a little bit was some innocent children dying. These children, they came out of nowhere and they were being plucked out of the sky and dropped to the ground. I was like, this is not okay. So yeah, this is my end of my journey reading Farland, because this was the last book that I owned by him. I am not going to finish out the Rune Lord series. It's not happening. I have tortured myself enough as it is, but I'm done with Farland's writing in general. I know a lot of you guys like him. I don't. Now that long rant is over, next we have another book that I own, and that would be Empress by Karen Miller. I DNF'd this book. I DNF'd this. This is actually my 3rd attempt trying to read Karen Miller, and I am done. I am done with her work. I'm not doing it anymore. I read her Kingmaker, Kingbreaker series and didn't like it. I had a lot of problems with that one. This one, though, this one takes the cake, because people were like, oh, if you don't like Kingmaker, Kingbreaker, you'll like The God Speaker. No. This book... It starts out with a woman being beaten and raped by her husband. I was like, that's fun. In front of their 12-year-old daughter. I was like, that's fun. Okay. Then 12-year-old daughter proceeds to get sold to a slaver. Or a traitor. I'm sorry. He's a traitor. He's a god traitor. That's right. He's a god traitor. Gets sold to him. Homegirl don't know anything about anything, okay? Because her father is like, you're just a she-brat. You're nothing. You're absolutely nothing. And that is a theme. I read 200 pages of this 717-page book. And for 200 pages, women are referred to as she-brats when they're children, whores and sluts when they're adults and married. They're not referred to as women, ladies, girls. They're she-brats or they're sluts and whores. Yeah, that's the only way that they're referred to as. And I was like, that's so fun. And then the little girl ends up finding out she's going to be sold off or whatever, because this whole time she's thinking she's someone special to this traitor. She's not. So she finds out she's going to be sold off and everything, and so she gets mad. She runs away. And from there, she ends up meeting the warlord, because there's war stuff going on too, I guess. And she's 12. She's 12, mind you guys. She's 12. This warlord is in his 40s. He takes one look at this little girl after she has self-mutilated her face, okay, because she's sick of men looking at her for her beauty. Takes one look at her and goes, my loins are on fire. She's 12. She's 12. Like, are you kidding me right now? You're kidding me, right? And then he's like, oh, I'll let her join the army and I'll never see her again and it's fine. Meanwhile, he's fighting with another warlord. For what reason? What reason? Oh, you guys would like to know that reason he's fighting with this other warlord? Oh, let me tell you. It's so he can get his child bride. Okay? That's why. Because they're over there. They're like, oh, has she gotten her blood yet? Like, this means it's probably another 12, 13-year-old little girl, because she's been promised to him that when she gets her blood, you know, she'll be sent over to him and be his little wife so he can make his little sons in her little womb, because that's her only use. Her only use is to make babies. And it has to be boys, because if it's a girl, she's bad. Because if women birth girls, that's a terrible thing. It's bad. It's negative. How dare? How dare? So that's what he's fighting with this other warlord about. Because he hasn't gotten his child bride, and he's all upset about it, while he's also lusting after this 12-year-old that you follow. And I'm just like... And then after he, like, separated from her, I was like, okay, like, this is fine. I don't have to worry about it. He got his child bride. Apparently he spent a month making her pregnant, and I was like, that's great. I didn't want to know that information. Like, I already knew it was coming, but I didn't need you to give me the details about it. And then he meets her again, and he's like, my loins are still lusting for her. And I was just like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. And that was pretty much around the time when I called it quits, because I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not. I just have this really, really sinking feeling that he's going to end up with this little 12-year-old. Because why not? Why not have two child brides? Why not? So that was when I called it quits. And then that was actually when I decided to go and read some further reviews for the series as a whole. And apparently it turns into the white savior complex. These people, it's a very Middle Eastern setting, by the way, because I have another complaint about that. It turns into, it starts out with this very Middle Eastern kind of setting, Indian, you know, and they're basically, the whole white complex thing comes in because these guys are savages, and they need to be taught the good Christian way. That's basically what the entire trilogy becomes, and I'm not here for that. I'm not. I'm not. Aside from all of those other little problems, the other big problem this book had, and this is actually something I don't understand when it comes to a lot of fantasy books where your setting takes place in another country. When you have your characters, obviously for me reading it, it's going to be written in English. I don't understand why these characters had broken English. They're technically speaking their tongue, their native tongue. It's just written so I can read it. So it doesn't make sense for these characters to have broken English, because their sentences should sound correct because they're speaking in their own native tongue. Yet so many of these characters are speaking in what would be considered like a broken English, or you've just learned English as your second language. the main girl made sense why she had broken vocabulary and sentence structure, because she had no education. But these other people, they had education, and yet they all spoke as if their language was just built around broken sentences, and it doesn't make sense to me, because I don't get it. Like, if I'm reading a book where it takes place in America and people are speaking English, I expect everyone to like be speaking it properly. If I'm reading a book where it takes place in Africa and everyone is technically in the book speaking their African language, but it's written in English so I can read it, I am expecting proper sentence structure. So I just don't get that. And then the audiobook, because I was listening to the audiobook, the narrator decided to go with a very stereotypical Middle Eastern Indian accent. And I didn't like that. They could have just hired like a Middle Eastern Indian person. And like they could have just done that instead of having someone who is clearly more than likely white do a stereotypical accent. So yeah, I have DNF'd that book and the entire trilogy. I will not be continuing it. After that, I know this video is getting really long. I'm so sorry. After that, I read Viking Thunder by Emanuela de Maupassant. I'm not sure if I said any of that correctly, but it is a romance book. It's a romance book. This is not romance. I'm going to tell you guys right now. This is not what I consider romance at all, okay? I was expecting it to be something along the lines of like, oh, this girl is her village is attacked and like a Viking comes to her rescue. No, my friends, no. You see, what happens is her village is attacked by said Vikings. She is gang raped by said Vikings. She then falls in love with the leader of the Vikings. He didn't take part in that initial raping of her, but he encouraged his men to do it, and she falls in love with him. He ends up like hitting her in front of everybody because she won't give him what he wants. Okay, then and then she just falls in love with him because he's so assertive and he's so strong and he's so handsome. Like, there is zero actual build up to any kind of like romantic relation between the two of these characters. It's just him just being like, you're gonna do as I say, you're gonna sleep with me tonight along with that girl at the same time. And he has like no actual character building at all. She has the worst character building because obviously she's like out here falling in love with a rapist, like you know. This is not my idea of a romance. Like, I don't even consider this a dark romance, honestly. I really don't. Most of the dark romances I'm aware of, they do tend to get a little bit into like territory where to me that doesn't sound like a romance story, but this absolutely does not. This was not romance at all. 1 star. If I could give it 0, I would. After that, I read An Alien Crush by Calizay. I love alien romances because a lot of times they're kind of, a lot of times the aliens are always done to where they're like really sweet dudes, and I love a sweet guy. Okay, I'm not into the brooding gray lover guy. I'm not into that. Okay, I like the sweetest apple pie guys. All right, but this one was so, it was so bad that it was laughable. Like, there was really no sustenance to the plot. The nicknames that this man came up for certain parts of her body, I was like, please stop talking. Please stop talking. That's not cute at all. And then the fact that when they're fighting a giant rabbit, he locks her into a place for safety. She manages to get out because why not? She runs over to him because he's on the ground bleeding because this giant rabbit is so strong. And she's like, oh my God, I have to help you. Oh my God, what should I do? Oh no. And she's like, I know, over in my hover car. That's not what it's called, but it's basically what it is. There's a weapon in there that I can use. I know exactly what to do. She gets up and she runs to the car. Okay. She pulls out her salon scissors because she's a hairstylist on this planet and chucks it at the rabbit and then proceeds to faint for 24 hours. And then the author is just like, she has like this male character be like, oh my God, you hurt yourself. You strained yourself so much that you were out for 24 hours. She ran. She ran. She ran to a car and threw a pair of scissors. Okay. Like, I lost it. I lost it laughing at that. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. This is so dumb. This is so dumb. Like, you could have at least had her injured. But no. She just ran. After that, because yeah, there's still more. There's still three more books. There's still 3 more books. I'm so sorry, guys. After that, I read Summer Prince by Juliana Haggart. I loved this romance. These are the male characters that I love because he was sweet as apple pie, you guys. I loved him so much. Like, he was just like, I'm sorry, can you help me? No, okay, I'm very sorry for bothering you. Like, like the whole book, that's basically his personality, where he's just like, I just need a little bit of help. Oh no, this Fae person's in trouble. I have to try and help them. Oh no, I accidentally brought these people to your place. I'm so sorry. Let me go out there and set them on fire. Because he also has firepower. And this was one of the things that I loved so much, is whenever you come across anyone who is associated with fire, they're mean, they're aggressive, they're hot-headed. He was calm, he was cool, he was collected, he was sweet. He didn't like force himself onto this girl, like anything like that. He was just like, oh, she's pretty. Can you help me get back home? I don't know how to get home. And she's like, did I not just leave you like in a jail cell because you didn't have the medallion we needed to go home? And he's like, yeah, but I forgive you for that. And I'm just like, why is he so cute? Like, I love the sweet guys so much. You girls with your morally gray men, you can keep them guys, okay? I want the sweetest pie guys, okay? But the plot was fantastic. There was actually a really, really good plot. The story focused more on the plot than it did the romance, which works for me, honestly, because I'm very hit or miss with the romances and stuff. And I thought the plot was really great because he's trying to get back home because his mom is dying, and he's like, I gotta save my mom, she's dying. And I was like, oh my God. And so he's trying to get back home, but they're also trying to avoid being killed by the current reigning witch of the area. And he manages to, hook up with another witch who he ends up falling in love with and ends up being his mate. I will say the fated mate aspect of the story felt out of left field because it's not mentioned through the first 50% of the book. And then once that 50% mark hit, all of a sudden it was like, we're mates. And I was like, this world has a mate thing going on in it? And it really felt out of place. I did at least appreciate the fact that Varian, that's his name, that he didn't like pressure her and stuff. Like, he was just like, yeah, like, we're mates. Like, I'm just gonna be like a cute puppy dog following you around until you hopefully eventually love me one day. Like, like, he wasn't like, you will, you have to. Like, I at least appreciated that, okay? And then it had very low spice. There was one like full on spicy scene, which really wasn't that hot and heavy or anything, and then like one a little bit towards the end. So very low spice. It works great for me. I know it's not everybody's jam, but honestly the story plot was really good. So, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Plus he was a sweetie pie. After that, I read Servant of a Pale Sword by Tim Akers. This is a short story. For the most part, I was confused through a lot of it. Honestly, I don't understand the magic system in it. Apparently it's all connected to a certain type of metal that's in this world, and only certain people can wield it. But it also started out with the guy purposely having his memories removed and then spending the entire book trying to remember what he had removed. And I was like, doesn't that defeat the purpose? Like, I don't understand why you would purposely have memories removed just so you can turn around and try and remember what those memories are. That was weird. I didn't understand that storyline. So it was just a little weird for me. A little weird, a little confusing. For the most part, it was well written. I actually like skipped maybe like 4 paragraphs throughout the entire thing because I was like, I'm not reading all that. like they were like page long paragraphs, and I was like, I'm not reading all that. But yeah, and then like it ended on a cliffhanger. It's gonna be a little series or whatever. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the next one. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. It was interesting, I guess. And then the last book that I have is The Riddle Master of Head by Patricia A. McKillop. As you guys know, I love McKillop. I love her writing. So this is the first book in the Riddlemaster series. It follows Morgan, Prince of Head, and I want to say it took me like 2 days to read. Normally I can get through her books in 1 day, but this one, it does require a bit more attention given to it, and I do think reading it a couple times will make me appreciate it more. I know not everybody's got that kind of time of day, but I love her writing, so I would do that. But I like Morgan's character. He is thrust into a destiny that he does not want. He was born with birthmarks of 3 stars on his forehead, and slowly but surely throughout the entire book, different things are popping up that also have 3 stars on them. And everyone is like, it belongs to you, Morgan. It's yours, Morgan. Hey, Prince of Head, this is yours too. And he's like, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And everyone's like, but you have to have it. And he's like, but it's my life. Like, I don't want it. Because if he takes on this destiny role that has been planned for him since his birth, he's like, I have to give up everything I love. I don't want to give up my brother. I don't want to give up my sister. I don't want to give up my home of Head. Like, I don't want to. And he spends like the entire book trying to run away from it, but it constantly steers him in the direction of it. And then his life starts getting threatened, and he's like trying to survive not being killed. And then he has to start thinking, if I go back home, I'm putting everybody I love at risk, because whatever this force is, it wants to kill me because I'm apparently that much of a threat. And you do find out some more, like he ends up he ends up discovering truths that have been hidden from the rest of the world for like 1,000 years. He meets a bunch of different wizards. He's finding out that maybe they're not actually gone. And he learns how to shapeshift. All kinds of different things like pop up in this book, and he is like at the center of it all. And the ending leaves you on this cliffhanger that you're like, what? Because, and even Morgan's like, what? Like, Morgan's reaction at the end, it very, like, is reminiscent of, like, you know, the scene in Star Wars when Luke finds out Vader's his father, and he's just, no! It reminded me of that. Because this revelation was, like, it was similar. It was so similar, and, like, Morgan's reaction was so similar, and I was just like, this is kind of funny. I'm getting those Luke vibes. What is this? So yeah, I definitely like this. I loved it. I will say, I don't know how old Morgan is supposed to be, because as you can see on my cover here, he looks like a very much older gentleman. But then, that's a young man. That's a young man. Like maybe early 20s. So I honestly do not know how old Morgan is supposed to be. I just know he is the eldest. One of the other things that I do like about the world is the way the land rule works. Like when the current land ruler dies, the next one who is heir to it, like they actually like feel the changeover. Like they're like, oh, my dad's dead. And I think that's actually kind of like pretty cool and innovative, and I really like that little aspect. So I'm looking forward to see what other little fantastical elements get brought up in the series. I have books 2 and 3 as well, so I will be continuing on with that. So that is everything that I read in the month of September. I almost forgot what month I was talking about. So if you've read any of these, if any of these sound good to you, if any of them sound horrible, because I know I went on a few rants there, and I apologize for that. Maybe I should like make DNF videos. I don't know, because I got a lot of things to say sometimes. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content, like, subscribe, all of those great things, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!